originating from the podcast studio inside FAM 360's headquarters in Atlanta, Georgia. This is the Above and Beyond Leadership Podcast. The Above and Beyond Leadership Podcast is designed to encourage, equip, and inspire our audience through a combination of inspirational stories and real-life experiences shared by other successful and skilled leaders in a variety of vocations. We hope that the Above and Beyond Leadership Podcast empowers each one of us to step out, step up, and ultimately thrive as leaders. Now here's our host, Mr. Matt Maloney.
Hey, guys. Welcome back to another episode of the Above and Beyond Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Matt Maloney. Welcome back to another solo session episode. Again, we're going to take the car off the highway and not have guests with us today, so you're stuck with me. But our solo sessions are really curated and designed to take a microscopic view of a particular topic, and those particular topics perhaps focused on certain areas of leaders and leadership growth and how we can grow as leaders. So our solo sessions are focused by taking the audience through proven factors that the greatest leaders possess and continually develop. So today, we're going to discuss what I believe are four interconnected forces, that when combined and executed on a routine basis, make up arguably the most important ingredients for the recipe of success as leaders and really as people, just in our lives. So, and how we lead ourselves. So again, before we get started, I like to start off with a quote, and this quote I think embodies the topic that we're going to talk about today. So if you can't figure out your purpose, figure out your passion. For your passion will lead you right into what your purpose is. And that's a quote from Bishop T.D. Jakes. So let's dive in. So today's four interconnected traits or forces, as I like to call them, are purpose, passion, perseverance, and patience. But I like to say purpose, passion, and perseverance with patience, because I think perseverance and patience are two elements that are interconnected in themselves. So all four of these items, purpose, passion, perseverance, and patience, are four key critical factors for leaders to have in order to build successful organizations or to have success in their lives. And really, again, just as any person, human being, having success to have purpose, passion, and perseverance and patience in our lives. But particularly in building organizations, this is so true. So what does really all this mean? So we're going to dive into each one of these and take a microscopic view today of each one. So let's start with purpose. All of us, first of all, are leading in some way. No, we might not be leading Fortune 500 companies. We might not be the head coach of the Alabama Crimson Tide. We might not be even leaders of an entrepreneurial business, but we might not even have a family. We might be single. But we are definitely leading in one way in our lives, and that's leading ourselves. If we are going to lead well in our lives, if we are going to live a life worth leading or worth living, I think we need to have purpose behind it, right? We need to have that. And I think this is something that at some point in time, purpose, that is something that at some point in our lives, every human being asks ourselves, what is my purpose in my existence? Why am I here? What am I doing with my life? And whether it's on a grander scale, or whether it's in business, or whether it's, what is the purpose of my relationships with people or with my family, we all ask ourselves that. So for me, purpose is my compass. And that's the way I like to look at it. It's the thing that guides me in a certain direction, whether I'm going north, east, west, south in life. It's the instrument that tells me where I'm going, or really, maybe better yet, why I'm doing something. Purpose is our why. So let's look at an example of something really, I find humorous. A child. We've all if you have children, we've all been here, and if you've been around children, perhaps you don't have children, but you have a sister or brother that have children, or you've just been around children, there's always that child that asks the question, why? Why am I doing this? Why do I have to do this? But why? Why? And sometimes we just want to say, well, because I just told you so. But the reality of it is, that's how God created us. God created us to be curious people, to identify the why in something so that we could understand it. And I mean, that's from a young age, right? A child wants to understand the why of the most simplest things so that they can better understand what it is that they're being asked to do, or why they're going in a certain direction, and essentially, again, going back, why is the purpose? What's the purpose of this? This is a quote from Mark Twain, and I really love this quote. It says, "The two most important days in your life are the day that you're born and the day that you find out your why." And that really resonated with me when I found that quote, and thinking about, for me personally, how I've looked at this question, explored this question of my purpose in life. And I do believe purpose can have, there can be different elements of purpose in different seasons of your life. There can be different things, but ultimately there is an ultimate purpose, an ultimate reason, an ultimate why that God created you as an individual on this planet, and how you are to carry out that purpose. So fact, purpose or why should be the central question that every single human being should ask themselves at some point in their lives. I think it, as I said before, it's the core element of creation. The Bible clearly states that God had a purpose in the creation of the universe, and more specifically in human beings. Science, I just watched a video on this with a panel of scientists, and they were debating purpose. But scientists have been wrestling for centuries, and even more so in recent years, as they study DNA, and they study the source of life, and they study the source of creation. They continually come back to one X factor, and that is, what is the purpose of it? And if you want to research that, you can Google that, about scientists debating purpose in creation. It's pretty interesting. In my own research on leadership, culture, and personal growth, I've poured over dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of studies, literature, and other information. In the last 15 years, there's been this increased focus on what is called purpose-driven leadership. So we're going to kind of bring this back into the realm of leadership for a second, and how purpose plays a role in it. And through my research, I can make a compelling argument for leaders that their most important role is to steward our organization's purpose. If you want to get people to buy in to something, to get behind something, they need to understand the purpose, or they need to understand why are they doing it. The greatest sports teams, college, pro, the greatest organizations, those leaders of those organizations are, I would say, they are overly focused on the purpose, the why of what they're doing. According to Harvard Business Review, business experts make the case that purpose is the key to exceptional performance, while psychologists describe it as the pathway to a greater well-being for the leaders and the people within those organizations. Doctors, according to Harvard Business Review, in a study that they did, doctors have even found that people with purpose in their lives are less prone to illness and disease. When people start to lose purpose, and you can see this, you've probably seen situations where a spouse has passed away, and soon thereafter, the other spouse, who was perfectly healthy, will pass away shortly after their spouse of 50, 60 years passes away. Their purpose, if their purpose is depleted, illness, disease, and ultimately death is soon to follow. So could it be the purpose, that compass that I mentioned earlier? Could it be that it's one of the keys, not just for organizations and their leaders during vision casting, but could it be that purpose is one of the keys to growth and sustained life? I think it is. I think it fundamentally is that we as human beings need to have a sense of purpose in our lives. And that transitions into leaders of organizations. In order for those organizations to grow and continue to grow and have sustained life for long periods of time, purpose, the why, has got to be at the core of what we do and what we instill in our people. So let's move on to the next point, passion. I don't know about you, but passion for me is something that ebbs and flows in my life. I wish I could tell you that I'm passionate about something all the time, or that I have strong passion about things all the time. But the truth is that's not always the case. Even for this podcast, I'm passionate about leadership. I'm passionate about learning from other people and sharing the stories of other credible leaders so that we can properly equip people in our audience. But I can't tell you that I'm always, every single day, passionate about it. I'm passionate about the topic, but I don't wake up every day thinking about it saying, this is what's going to drive me today. I wish that was the case, but that's not always the case. But I can tell you this, when I am passionate about something, I think this is true for everybody. When we are passionate about something, it's like petrol or fuel in the engine of a car. It will keep us going and going and going, and not because we have to. Passion is one of those things, it's those emotions that it drives us because we want to. It's something that we want to do. And that's the type of fuel, frankly, that I want in me when I'm engaging and trying to look to grow my business or lead a group of people or with my family. I want it to be passionate. So not because, again, that I have to, but because I want to. Because when you want to do something, as the old saying goes, it doesn't feel like work. It doesn't feel like a challenge. It may be challenging, but it doesn't feel like that there's struggle with it. So how does passion relate to leadership, building great cultures, growing a thriving team or in business, or simply just realizing certain dreams of ours that we have in our personal lives? It's simple. And I already said it. Passion is fuel. And as leaders, we are the source of the fuel. We bring the fuel to our organization. If you are a leader and you are not passionate about what your organization is doing, what your sports team is doing, you may want to reconsider what your vocation is or what it is that you're doing. Because I don't know about you, but if I'm walking alongside or working alongside a leader who isn't passionate, and we can see through their emotion, we can see it in the way that they talk, in the way that they carry themselves. If they're not passionate about something, I don't think I'm going to be very passionate about it. But here's where it gets interesting. You see, passion isn't a state of mind, it's a state of the heart. And I firmly believe that passion is a state of the heart. Yes, it's an emotion. It can be classified as an emotion, but that comes from not our head, but it comes from, if it's real passion, it comes from our heart, which eventually does move our mind, and our mind then allows us to commit and eventually moves our hands and feet into action. And when our hearts and our head and our hands and feet are fully engaged in something, we literally have the ability to achieve levels of success and incredible excellence that far outweighs or far beyond what our minds can think. So passion is one of those things that, again, I think it goes without saying, but it's important to understand that as leaders, we need to sit back and reflect on what is it in our organizations, what is it about what we're doing that we're passionate about, and make sure that our teams of people understand that. We talk about it in our organization all the time. Culture and cultural development and passion is one of those things as part of it, but I'm passionate about that within our organization. And maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I don't recall exactly when, and I didn't really know how to do it, but I just decided that I was going to start training on building our culture and start bringing our management and our leadership into it. And I didn't have an idea of what it looked like. I just was willing to take the first step. And it's something that I'm very passionate about. And if you ask any one of our people in our organization, I would be willing to bet you a Benjamin that they would say that Matt is passionate about the culture of the company. So find something that you're really passionate about and impart that on your people and bring them into that so that they become passionate about it. So next is, and I combine these two elements, the element number 3 and 4, perseverance and patience. So let's examine these last 2 points. first, there's a reason that I connect these two highly critical traits. On the surface, obviously they seem obvious, right? You need to, as leaders and in life, we need to have perseverance. We're going to face trials and tribulations, and we certainly need to have patience. Patience in our business, patience with a process. If you're a parent, patience with your children as you're raising your children. But there's more than meets the eye here. So success in anything rarely comes easy. It oftentimes is a result of working a process or a series of processes over long, extended periods of time. Maybe another way put is that certainly achieving things that are worthwhile, takes time and it takes a process. But it's more than just a time and process. So perseverance is, I'm not sure if this is really a definition of it, but this is kind of my description of it. Perseverance is being relentless about doing what needs to be done for as long as it takes. And there's no doubt that perseverance is essential because in really building a business and as leaders, because let's face it, as the old saying goes, Rome wasn't built in a day. Great businesses weren't built in a day. They're built one solid brick at a time. And so that does take perseverance as you're building it because you're going to encounter challenges, things that and sometimes, by the way, the biggest challenge, I know for me, is the voice that's inside my head. The voice that's inside my head that's saying, you don't have what it takes. Look at what they're doing and look at what you're doing. You just lost a client. You just, something just happened over here and they were able to do something better than you. That voice in my head comes up all the time and I have to continually kind of push that voice out, reset myself. And that comes from perseverance. Patience is the strength of will to navigate the process and challenges you will face as you work the process. Patience is essential because, again, there are going to be problems. And if you're patient, if you stay the course, if you stay focused, and you have the perseverance to stay engaged, eventually good things will come. So you've heard me say this. You've heard perhaps other people say this, but great leaders are not born. Great leaders are built. They're built, I believe, through a process of refinement, right? I think if you would talk to people, you would hear that people would tell you that, look, the greatest lessons I've learned are some of the failures that I've gone through. And that requires perseverance, right? To go through those failures and to pick yourself back up, dust yourself off, and go through that. So again, great leaders are not born, they're built. And they're built through a process, a refining process. Proverbs 27:17 says, iron sharpens iron as one person sharpens another. And this couldn't be any more true in leadership and in building incredible cultures amongst teams of people, whether it's leading sports teams or whether it's leading in a business. The refining process requires both perseverance and patience. I actually heard Dabo Swinney, the head coach of the Clemson Tigers college football team, say on a interview he had, that he said that he gets to see his players and the type of perseverance that they have and that's needed to be to succeed on the team. And he says, in his own words, he says, the process of going through struggle, that process will either shine you or grind you. And it's depending upon what you're made of. And I thought that was such a great quote that he said. And I plan on using that. I just heard that recently on an interview that he had. The fact is, the most successful leaders and the most successful organizations, they're tough. They have perseverance. They're patient because they have to be patient. They're methodical about what they do. They have a process and they're willing to stick to that process and work that process. They have grit. Angela Duckworth on one of her TED Talks talks about how one of the most important, in fact, I think it was the most important factor of successful entrepreneurs. It wasn't their education. It wasn't their IQ, but it was, in her TED Talk, she talked about it. It was grit. It was their ability to overcome adverse situations, adverse circumstances, their perseverance, and persevere through that, as she calls grit. So it's been my experience over the last 20 years personally, over leading this organization with others, and all the trials and tribulations we've gone through, the ups and downs of economic turmoil with the Great Recession in 2008 and 2009, and coming out of that perseverance and certainly patience, and having patience on the process that you put in place was probably one of the cornerstones to our ability to sustain and go through those trials and tribulations and ups and downs. So, let me encourage you as leaders to stay the course, be passionate, have purpose, and maintain perseverance and patience as you continue to try and lead your organizations to greater levels. Well, that's it, guys. As we wrap up, thanks again for joining, and to all of our subscribers and listeners out in podcast land, I hope today's episode was both empowering and inspirational. Until the next time, I hope and pray that our daily journeys are filled with opportunity to lift others up as we aim to go above and beyond. Thanks, everyone.
Our executive producer and host is Matt Maloney, President and CEO of FAM360. Strategic Communication Coordinator, Michelle Ducato. Production assistance by Tin Dog Studios. Director, John Berland. Creative Assistant, Whitney Berland. Theme song, Connecting Dots by Curtis Cole, provided by Artlist. Please subscribe today and don't miss any of our weekly episodes.